Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Welcome here tonight. We thank Oak Point very much for sponsoring us tonight and then letting us use their hall. It's important that this message and this information get out to as many folks as possible. We have 3 public forums. We're going to have in 3 different places. So we certainly welcome your interest. We welcome your insight. We welcome your input. And we certainly welcome you here tonight. I speak on behalf of the Middleborough Public Schools. Rob DeRosier, who's standing with me, is the chairman of the building committee. So he'd like to say just a welcome.
Hard act to follow. As far as the building committee is concerned, we want this to be an open process where we get as much information back from you guys, as much input as possible, and we want to be sure we inform the community at large of everything we're doing as we move along, so there's no big surprise next fall when we show up at town meeting with a plan. So tonight, if you have a thought, if you have a criticism, if you have a comment, something to add, jump right in and say it. Now is the time. Our architects are here. They want to listen to you. They want to know what you're thinking, because we want the project that we present to you to be something you can get behind when the time comes. So enjoy, participate, ask any questions you have. Thank you.
Part of the process, thank you, Rob, part of the process of starting this whole procedure that we're going to go through for the next 4, 5, 6 years possibly, is bringing aboard what's called an OPM, or an owner's project manager. Somebody who works on behalf of the school system and who really knows this business. We're fortunate tonight to have Compass Project Management with us. We have Tim Bonifati and Christy Murphy who are joining us tonight. They have been a great help in helping us understand this process, helping us work with the MSBA. You'll hear us mention the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They are the sponsors of the funding goes through them. So that 56.26 or that 58.8, whatever the amount, the percentage of money of reimbursement from the state comes through that organization. So they have a very tight schedule of what we need to do and how we need to do it. And to help us with that, obviously, is the OPM. So Tim Bonifati wants to come up and discuss the overall process that we're going through. And he's going to have Christy come up with it.
I think, well, we're going to talk about the process, but I think that Jim wants to go through the schedule. Or do you want to? Yeah, sure. Just go through the agenda, just so people get an idea of what to expect.
Speak up, guys.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out. We gave you an agenda earlier tonight. We want to be respectful of your time and make sure that we move things along at a pace here. Promise to have you out of here in about an hour and a half, and they tell us the rains will stop and the skies will clear at that time, so we're on schedule. What I wanted to do, as I said, in terms of taking care of the agenda is first introduce the team of folks that are working alongside me in terms of working through this study effort. And so I guess if we could, starting with Linda, just self-introduce down the side, guys. Tell people what you're doing.
I'm Linda Goodman. I'm the project architect on this project.
Yeah. We can't hear them.
We all
My name is Linda Goodman. I work with DRA, and I am the project architect on this project.
I'm Scott Wooden. I'm with DRA Architects also, and I'm the project manager. I'm David Warner. I'm the landscape architect working with DRA Architects.
I'm Greg Barrett. I'm actually not an architect. I'm an educational planner in training with Paul Moore.
Yeah, I'm Paul Moore. I'm an architect with DRA. I've been doing this kind of work for over 35 years.
So we have a team with a broad variety of skill sets. It's that type of team that's necessary to come forward and weigh out the many considerations, the various options and alternatives needed for consideration of the potential of Middleborough High School. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Bonifati. Tim will speak about, as Superintendent Lynch indicated, schedule and moving us through the MSBA process.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yes. So I'm going to talk very quickly, just walk through the schedule. As you can see, we're in November. We're at the point of the second community forum. Our big submission, and the one we're going to get feedback from you folks today on, is called the Preliminary Design Program. That's the first submission to the Mass School Building Authority. It basically tells them what the educational plan, which Principal Brannigan's going to go through with you a little bit later. It also talks about what our initial options are, and we also begin to tell them these are the short lists that we're going to want to study as we move through the next phase of the process. So that's going to be submitted in December. The next significant submission is going to be the preferred schematic report, which is we're going to be submitting in March in time for the board meeting. The goal for us is to reach the board meeting on that preferred schematic report in May. That essentially tells the MSBA, this is the project that we've arrived at with the town of Middleborough. This is the one that we want to put forward through schematic design and into construction. Or actually get put through the schematic design and then get town approval on it. That's the first big submittal. We then do move through schematic design, which basically represents about 20% of the design process. That'll happen through the spring and summer. We get pricing at that point, much more deep, very, pretty good committed pricing on what the project should cost. That's when we decide what the schedule is. That's when we come back to you with the tax impact, what the impact of the project will be, what the reimbursement will be, and what that will lead for the town to pay. That all happens, as you can see, in that blue bar, basically in the late spring and summer. And so we'll be coming, to the community in the start of the fall, sort of introducing the project, and then going to the MSBA board in that board meeting with the actual sort of deal, if you will, in October. And then we'll be putting it in front of the town for a vote for approval in the November town meeting, the October-November town meeting, or November special election. So what we want to get as much as possible, and then Rob mentioned this, is get input from people, as much input as we can get at this phase, so that we know we're off in the right direction. I'm going to just talk quickly about the process, and then we're going to get right into sort of explaining the options, or getting into the ed plan and the options. I mentioned the education plan, which is something that Principal Brannigan has been working on for the past month, working with vision folks from DRA that work with him on sort of understanding how does educational vision translate to bricks and mortar. How should the school serve what he wants to see what he wants to see a 21st century high school do. Education now is a lot different than it was in the 20th century. It's delivered. It's trying to get kids trained for the very unique skills that they need coming into the 21st century, and Paul will explain that. That drives, in the MSBA process, everything. The educational plan drives decision-making, so they always measure, when we put options in front of them, they'll measure them against that ed plan. Does the options we put in front of them do what Principal Brannigan wants to have the building do in terms of labor education? We're at the point now where we're in this sort of between options discussion, and criteria. So we're presenting to you tonight, I think it's 11 options, which we expect at some point to put a list of criteria, which the building committee have been working with us on developing, and what we will do is measure these options against those criteria. As much as possible, we try to make it an objective process, not subjective. So obviously one of the criteria is cost, but there are a number of other criteria that come up in that as we measure against it. That then will drive the short list that I mentioned, is something we'll be working on through December in anticipation of that PDP submission to the Mass School Building Authority. And then working through the short list, again, we do through an evaluation process, and we get to the project that we'll be putting in front of the town in next fall. So that's a quick discussion of the process. I think from that point on, we're going to move to you guys on options.
Paul Brennan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. Yeah, on Ed. Sorry about that.
That's good, because I didn't
This
have
is
any-
actually the star of the show, so I changed it.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight to learn a little bit about our high school, and also to have an opportunity to have input and ask questions as well. What I'm going to do with you is just share with you a little bit of an existing overview of what the high school looks like today. Some of the upgrades that we have been doing within the building, because one of the things that's important for any school is to make sure that you're living within your means and you're able to actually create spaces in spaces that you already have and to try to make that work. So just to kind of take you through a little bit, I don't know if mine is...
Is it on?
So just really a snapshot of our conditions. Really, it's important for you to see what our core values are. One of the things about Middleborough High School is that it is a major decision-making process for us in anything that we do to really make sure it goes back to our mission. And our core values that you see here are the things that we want to make sure that all of our students are doing at the high school. So when you walk into Middleborough High School, you'll see that acronym everywhere in our building. It's in our front lobby, it's in our cafeteria, it's in our major spaces, it's in classrooms, because it really speaks to what we want our students to do and what we believe in as a school. Our vision statement, again, this is something that we as a faculty come back to do and to review each and every year. So we vote on this and make sure that we're still believing what we're saying and that this is where we make our decisions from. And if you notice that this is really a 21st century vision statement. This was created by our faculty in 2011, 2012, as we were preparing for our 2013 accreditation study. And we really went through a really good hard look at ourselves to say, what do we want to be as a high school, and where do we want to take our school? And this vision statement is helping us drive that. For example, this week we're launching our one-to-one initiative, where every student in the high school, all 700 of them, are getting a laptop computer. Our freshmen had that done yesterday, and they all came in this morning with their computers. The sophomores had theirs today, and the juniors will be tomorrow, and the seniors will be on Thursday. And by the end of the week, all 700 of our students will be in a one-to-one environment of teaching and learning. Our 21st century learning expectations. This is a really important slide, and I shared this with you because this is, again, something that our faculty, they vote on, they believe in it. You will see this in their lesson plans, you will see this in our curriculum. These are the 21st century learning skills that we believe that every single Middleborough High School graduate should be able to do. So in our school, this is what you will see hanging throughout our building. We're working on right now a capstone project that all of our students starting in the class of 2021 will actually have to show demonstration of how they are a 21st century learner through actually these bullet items that you see here. So teachers are constantly going back through to figure out how is it that we do this. The teachers are using rubrics that goes along with each one of these that really can help calculate our student achievement in relation to skills that apply to 21st century learning. And really just about our school, we consider ourselves to be strong. There's a slide that I was going to share with you that talks about actually we used to be a building about hope. We're hoping we're going to be better. And then really over the last many years, we have really transformed ourselves into really talking about strength. So you will see that when you ever come, if you ever want to come into our school, you will see this whole idea about our high school being strong. Our students have to start strong, to be strong, to stay strong, and ultimately to graduate and they can finish strong. And this is just a picture of our kickoff rally. Really a perfect storm. And I shared this with you because it's important to share with you where we were at. We call it the perfect storm at the high school because there were certain very big things that happened to our community and happened to our school that really became an opportunity for us as a school community to look at ourselves in the mirror. In 2012, the DESC, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, came into the school district and they did a study on the school district. And they really took a good hard look really at the high school. And if you notice the fact I have in italics the Titanic, because that's what they refer to us as. And that was a real defining moment for faculty members like myself and many others that are here. That whole career has been in that high school. On top of that, in 2013, a year later, we had our accreditation study. And they came out of that with almost 70 recommendations that our school building needed to achieve, that we needed to work at. They placed us on warning for curriculum and based on the instruction because of facility. And we still remain on warning today based upon the facility. But I can tell you that out of the 70 recommendations that we were given in 2013, we are in progress for all of them. The NEAS committee thought we were doing a wonderful job at our 2-year report, which was a year ago. And we just got back our second report that really, our special progress report, I should say, that said we're really right on track to meeting our goals. Our accountability level, we slipped to a level 3, that became the perfect storm. So when you have a faculty that has been told it's the Titanic, you have a NEASC report that was not glamorous, and then you're told you're a level 3 school. That became really a defining moment for us. And it was something we said we would never be like again. And that's really where our transformation and our story begins. You look at our challenges in our facility, which is really something that the NEASC report really spoke to. And then on top of that, morale and perception of who we were as educators really became really trying. It really became a testimony to a consistent leadership that it's important to know from 2001 through 2011, right when we were getting ready to do our NEASC report, we had almost 11 different administrators at the high school. And you didn't realize it was happening as a teacher in the building until really you started to see some of these things that you were seeing in these reports. So it's important to give you a little bit of a backstory of where we were at. Now let's look at actually what we were dealing with in a facility. You see our library. Really some of these things that you're seeing in terms of what we were dealing with, it's really because you need to begin to start working with kids to create 21st century learning environments. And when you have restrictive spaces, it becomes really challenging to do that. The lack of collaborative space, the technology with challenges in the building, which we have really done a lot of work to upgrade that facility to show that. Breakout space, ventilation, our library is totally interior. There's no outside windows that go out to natural light of any kind. But it's important to look at the upgrades. This is a picture of our learning commons. Our librarian, who's a complete rock star, had done a tremendous amount of research on really how do you take a space that you currently have and transform it into something much more flexible. And a year ago, September, we opened up our new library that really has a very different configuration for seating. It's much more mobile. There's breakout spaces. We were able to acquire furniture from the middle school and really just change the face of that library. And the place is packed, which is great with kids. The science labs. You'll notice the fact that's a picture of one of our chemistry labs in its current condition that was taken in September. In the NEASC report in 2003, there were some really clear directives that were given to the school district and the high school in regards of what we needed to do with that facility in the science labs. However, we could only go as far as we could go because of the means we had at the time. All the cabinets were refinished, and there were very limited improvements we were able to do. For example, there were emergency showers we needed to put into the facility. Only 2 of the rooms were able to get it, and there was no drainage put in. So if you have to let go of those emergency showers, it's not going anywhere but all over the floor. So we have them, but it's just really how far you can take them is another story. The technology issues, we were able to install smartboard technology into every single science room and math classroom. So up until really 2 years ago, the entire 3rd floor of our high school had that technology. The rest of the building did not. 2 years ago, the district was able to install Brightlink projection screens and that in the technology for projection in every single classroom in the school. Really just the lack of 21st century approaches to teaching and learning. If you look at really much more modern science labs, there's a lot of flexibility to them. You can move a lot of things around. In the high school currently, what you see is what you get. We can move the student desks around, but those lab tables in the back are they're solid, they're not going anywhere. So it really became something that we needed to be looking at. And again, really STEM limitations. There's very little opportunities for collaboration and innovative space, which is really a 21st century approach. And that term innovation you'll see in a few minutes. Technology. This was a major, major challenge with NEASC. And it has been a major challenge with the high school up until just recently. But I shared this with you because if you look at this picture, it is one of our computer labs. It is one of 3 labs we have at the high school. This is probably one of the most high-tech labs. And what I mean by that is it's the only space in the building where we can actually engage students in things like CAD. And when you look at the numbers of students who want to engage in that type of experience, we only have 1 space where we can engage students with that. Again, lack of large group collaborative spaces, innovative technology approaches, the installation of the Brightlink projectors, which I shared. We launched a Bring Your Own Device network last year. We really wanted to get the wheels turning on the bus in regards of how do we engage kids in technology and also how do we engage teachers in it as well. And then lastly, this week, we're officially launching the one-to-one initiative. And what a cool thing it was this morning to watch 200 ninth graders walk into the building with their laptops this morning and walking through classrooms and seeing them engaged in it. The auditorium, a beautiful space, but we have tremendous issues in that space. Even just this morning, our fall show is going up this weekend, and I was talking to the theater director, And she said, we'll be lucky if we squeak through this show with lights, because it is just, it has run its course. The sound system, we have to bring in DJs to be able to put up speakers and things, and we have to purchase sound to be able to project because the overhead speaker system is no longer working. The lighting system, broken seats, lack of technology, as well as the black box theater. Our black box theater used to be the metal shop at the high school. For any of you here who's an alum, that used to be the metal shop. And when we converted it into a black box theater, all we simply did is paint the walls black and write black box on the wall. And we built it. It was genius at that time, but we just never did anything more with it. And you took wood bleachers and we just kind of made them, and that was what it is. And actually the lift is still in the middle of the floor, and we have a couch on it now, so it looks nice. The classrooms. This is really one of our English classrooms right here. There's the desks that are there were 30 of them in that room. So it is jam-packed in there with desks. Lack of power in these classrooms is an outlet in the front and an outlet in the back. So mostly every classroom you walk into our school, there's loaded with, what's the word?
Power strips.
Yes, the power strips. For everything can go into just those strips. The desk, the technology capability, that is something that is improved because of the one-to-one initiative that we're launching, and really just lack of flexibility. What you would find is that in many situations that you need to what is called differentiated instruction, where the students have to be able to engage in very different modalities in one class setting. In this kind of a setting, when you put 30 kids in that room with desks, you spend more time rearranging a room than you actually can do the teaching you're looking to do. Special education. This really is, I think, one of the hallmarks of the high school, and what I mean by that is that we work very hard to keep all of our students at the high school. But with that being said, that the needs back in 1971 when the high school was built, and now you're looking at 2016, there's a huge shift in what special education services we need to be providing. This is our life skills room. This used to be the home ec room. It used to be our foods room, and then we realized we had a tremendous need of space. Our entire life skills program and our postgraduate students who were with us until the age of 22, they were all shoved in a regular classroom. And that we knew we had to make some significant moves. We transformed the foods room, took the program away, and actually created a life skills program. This space that you're seeing is a wall that we built with the remnants of part of the kitchen so that we could actually have the life skill experience. We put a washer and dryer in there, we put a dishwasher in there, so that we could actually have a complete autonomous program for students to be able to engage. Our vocational program, this is an interior room that abuts that life skills room, and this is really where the home base is for our postgraduates before they go off into community. The Learning Center. This is actually a very small room. This used to be the library conference room off the library. And we had to create this into a small learning space for students. And that is a formal classroom. And right now there is about 8 or 9 desks in that room, and it is quite a tight little space. This room used to also be a faculty room, which then we created into the night school office for a period of time. We now have transformed that into what we call our learning center. We had to blow a door, and that back door that you see open, we had to blow a door into that computer lab you saw a little while ago, so we could actually use it for a student space. This is for students that need to have small group instruction, and it's really all about skill-based. How do you take notes, and how do you organize, and that kind of thing. Room 218, this is our language-based program. This is an area in particular that it's important to take note of because it's kind of hard to see in the photo. In this particular program, because of the learning disabilities that these students have, the more mobile they can be, the better. But the lack of that is really tough here. And in the back, you'll see a dining room table that the teacher brought in. We put it on stilts that has wheels on it so that we'd be able to move it around for kids to be able to move as they're learning as well. Luckily, she was able to bring in that dining room table. The Links program. We have a very large social emotional component to our school, meaning the fact that we have a program for students who have a social or emotional disability. This is our Links program. It is really a wonderful, wonderful place to go down and see. But this space is a self-contained classroom. Our students will leave and come back into the program as needed, and then we have an adjustment counselor's office that is attached to that. That used to be actually a French classroom at one time. Our Futures program. We have an alternative high school inside the building. This actually used to be the wood shop. And that 2 years ago, we completely transformed that space into making it look and to feel like it is its own school. We built 2 classrooms in, we put lockers in, carpeted it, dropped the ceiling, and you never realized it was the wood shop. I say this to you because, again, I wanted to share what we have the high school, in our own high school, but it's also the fact we're taking spaces that we had to convert into something, and we made sure that we could make it into something as well. The changes in facilities. That is one of the things that I would say in the late 90s, early 2000s, when we decided as a school district to get rid of the vocational experiences, the wood shop and the metal shop, because that was happening everywhere. And it was the trend to say that really didn't belong in our school. Now you shift the pendulum again and you're thinking what a horrible decision that really was. So when you look at actually those 2 experiences that we lost for kids, one is now our alternative high school and the other one is the black box. The gymnasium. This is another area that we have really had some challenge. Very little breakout space. If you were to go into our gym, the egresses that go out to the main part of the building are stacked with mats and stacked with volleyball nets and things like that. Our weight room is behind the bleachers. We do not have a formal weight space. So anytime we need to do a major event, we have to move all the bleachers out, all the weights out so we can push the bleachers back. Locker rooms are in need. The gym floor has been bubbling, and I know the fact that Mr. Hutchinson has been working to have some of those areas of the floor corrected. We don't have an entrance to the gym. If you were to come to the Middleborough High School gym, you step right onto the gym floor. So there's no ability to have an egress of any kind or a lobby of any kind. Technology limitations, the bleachers, and of course, storage. Our weight room, I do need to give a shout out because this space that you're seeing used to be a math classroom that we converted into a Nautilus facility. And that every single one of the devices in that space is because of Oak Point. They gave an unbelievable donation to our school community 2 years ago to allow us to have another aspect of something we've never had. So I can't tell you how often that space is being used by phys ed classes, the athletic teams. That place is hopping, so thank you to Oak Point for that because this is something that was very much needed. Our guidance services, our health clinics, again, you just see there's no personal space. If you were to walk into our guidance office, that main table is where kids have to sit. We have very little confidential space for kids to be able to meet with a counselor besides their office. The health clinic as well, we had to create and move a counselor out because we needed to have confidential space for the nurse, which we did not have either. Music department, which is right above the boiler. So in the time when it was built, it was a great idea, but now you're like, I don't know how good an idea that was at the time. So the boiler literally sits right above the music suite. It is a shared space between our band and our chorus, and that is an area that we have very little storage. If you notice in the back side of that is really a set from a play, because it was something we didn't want to get rid of because we could be using it again. The visual arts program, this is an area that we have unbelievable work getting done in the school by our art students, but again, it's the spaces that are very limited. You know, most of your art classrooms, they look for flexibility and how you can change spaces and change furniture, and that is something that we have struggled with. The cafeteria. We got brand new tables last school year, which has been wonderful, that we really wanted to create a more of a college-like campus rather than just the long institutional tables that we've always have had. But again, just really some challenge. We have to do 4 lunches because the space can't fit the recommended 3 lunches that's recommended by the state to be able to have. Maximizing space. This is the old bus lobby. We changed it into an art gallery, and it's really a wonderful place if you're walking through our building or coming in, especially at night. It's you keep changing the artwork out, and it has become a really beautiful place to go down to be. The result of teaching and learning. I put this slide together just simply you could just see the limitations of really where we're at. The collaborative space, conference space, innovation space, the maker spaces, STEM, fine arts, athletics, inability to truly engage special education as we need to, and really ultimately engage in 21st century learning. Really where we're at. We've had significant achievements in technology, as you know, as I just said with the one-to-one. Our accountability in 1 year, we went from a level 3 high school to a level 2, and we're on the doorstep of becoming a level 1. For the first time ever, I think in years in our history, I'm looking at Andy and Donnie, the 2 assistant principals. We've been the longest running team in years together on year 5, which is not something that's been the norm at the high school. Meeting our expectations in the NEASC report in 2015. Our AP program, we have 14 AP programs that we're offering which is just tremendous. The morale of our teachers, of our kids, Station Pride is back, and really the image of our school in the community, I think, is changing, and we still have a long way to go. Really, just to give you a quick blurb about really where we've been. The vision planning meetings on September 14, 15, and 22, 45 members were part of this, faculty, students, community members, and their charge was really working with the architects, and the project team is really designing what is the vision of the 21st century Middleborough High School. It was an incredibly powerful 3 days. After the 3 days, we had a real, very rough schematic, and I'm talking, it was like on a napkin kind of thing, but it really gave the beginnings of the story. From there, the following week, on September 29th and 30th, we had the architectural programming meetings. And DRA came and spent 2 days with us, and every single person in the building was met with. What I mean by that is, in terms of every content area, custodians, cafeteria, counseling staff, and part of the job of that day was to talk about what part of the building do they use, and what kinds of things should they have, or would like to have. My job in all of these was to take notes. And that we ended up leaving with some really good vision of what we think a 21st century high school should be. And really just the draft of the education plan, which you'll see over the next few weeks. We're still working on the fine tuning and the drafts of the editing that needs to be done. You'll notice all the areas of focus. So this is what MSBA says we need to make sure that we're focusing on in this vision plan and this education plan. You'll see all the items that are there as well. There are some things that we added, like student activities we added, which is really a lifeblood of our school. And we also added some things in there. We received vocational and college career readiness. And lastly, our guiding principles. This is an important part of our education plan that when you see it, it talks about 21st century learning. It should be engaged in respective content areas, meaning the fact we really want to keep identity of a history department and a math department. But we also believe the fact of the power of interdisciplinary learning between how you can take a history and an English teacher or a math and a science teacher and really see the match that they can create. Collaboration, flexibility, interchangeable spaces that we can make sure that we can constantly be evolving in a building. And lastly, engagement of a college and career readiness to make sure all of our kids are ready for life. And really just engage the town of Middleborough and to foster the belief that our school is home. Our kids really do refer to Middleborough High School as their home. And it's really something we want to make sure we continue to foster. Really just some of the highlights, and really fast. What things came out of this is really looking at a focus on humanities and really bringing and linking the content areas you see there. An area of STEM, and what I loved is this Center for Innovative Studies. And it's really looking at areas of how you can have math and science, technology, and even a potential of visual arts embedded into the STEM subjects. A health and wellness program that has our PE, athletics, but also our counseling program because of the whole idea of wellness and health, and also our Futures program, which is our alternative high school. Our Performing Arts Center, music and theater, career exploration, vocational experiences, dining commons / a student center, looks like a student union, a learning commons / a library media center, and then lastly, our special education programming services. These were the major overarching pieces that came out of our vision planning, and now we have to tell the story of what that would actually look like. And really just you see some big dates that are coming. On December 14th, we'll be presenting the ed plan to the building committee, and then the 15th to the school committee, and ultimately working with this really tremendous team of really our major submission of our milestone on December 23rd. And really just I close with really a thank you for being here. This is a picture from our orientation program back in August. We have a 2-day very strong orientation staff. All the kids in the white shirts are our 9th graders. 167 came in, and 140 of them were there for the full 2 days. So it really is just a wonderful way to start our school year. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Paul. And as you can imagine, Principal Brannigan for us is a real resource in terms of understanding what are some of the challenges that exist within the existing high school. He also is great in terms of helping us identify what are those things that are part of the high school today that you'd never want to see changed and have to be carried forward as part of the educational experience here for your students. One thing that we were able to do, and this is a work in progress, is utilizing MSBA's guidelines, take a look at each of the existing spaces within the existing facility and come to understand what are those spaces that meet guideline constraints, what are those that are somewhat challenged, and what are those that do not. And it's a red, yellow, green, supposedly, it's turned blue on the screen, but it's that idea of those areas in red are those a significant challenge relative to square foot standards. And we've done this throughout the building as you move up through the construction. So that's a working process as we come to understand the building as well as Principal Brannigan. And that's work that is continuing for us. In terms of this evening, we have a lot of information to share with you, so we'll try to move through this quickly. As was mentioned earlier by Superintendent Lynch, we had opportunity to hold a first workshop. It was held within Middleborough's high school in the main lobby space. It was a great evening with a lot of dialogue and interaction. What we shared that evening, and what I'd like to share with you today, is our process is one that builds upon a series of building blocks, if you will. The act of collecting, listening, visioning, and ultimately development of a document that will help carry us forward. I think I'm just going to run through this. In terms of the act of collecting, it's having our team come through with our engineers, with those that can help us understand the bones of the building, if you will. So we've spent a lot of time in the building just coming to understand the physical environment. Another activity is that of listening. And our educational planners and programmers sitting with the staff and the faculty, as Principal Brannigan indicated, for several days, coming to understand how is the building working today? What are the challenges that are ahead of us, but what are those things that are working very, very well? And then visioning. Our team coming to find the widest array of options and alternatives. No idea is a bad idea at that time, at this point within the process, and we're looking for your input. And then lastly, documentation. And as we speak about documentation, we want to look at a wide variety of options and alternatives. What if nothing was done? What if we simply repaired the building and kept it moving as it stands today? The top row is a series of 4 alternatives that look at addition renovation options and alternatives. The middle row is one that looks at the potential of new construction at the high school site. And the bottom row is one that looks at a possibility of new construction within the middle school site. And so what we want to do at this point is give you a snapshot of these options as they play forward. And we'll start with the renovation and addition schemes.
So in looking at the addition and renovation schemes, we're looking at a number of different options, from larger additions to very small additions, while renovating the existing part of the building that's going to remain. And one thing that's common in all these schemes is that any part of the existing building that will remain will be updated and refinished, systems brought up to code, new systems put in, the rooms redone, new finishes, etc. So anything that is existing that's staying will be redone. This option A is one of our larger addition schemes, where the red area are the new additions and the blue is the area that will remain of the existing building. The red areas here are shown a 2-story classroom addition along with the new cafeteria and media center. The existing classroom wing would be demolished in this scheme. And we'd also add to the east side there a new entry which would house a new administrative and guidance area. We'd also in the scheme add a new foyer entry to the gym because it's lacking right now. As Mr. Brannigan had said, right now when you walk into the gym, you're walking right onto the gym floor. The existing areas to remain would be the gym, locker rooms, auditorium, the black box area, music, and art rooms. And those again would have extensive renovations, reconfigurations of those areas to increase size where they may need to. For example, the gym is undersized, it needs additional fitness space. So some of that space would move into where the music area is right now, and the music area would be relocated where the administration is, and so on. So that's one of our addition schemes right here. This is actually called A1, which is a very similar scheme, except for the addition is going to be at the front of the building. And this would actually allow us to, when you drive by the school, you'd have that new school look right off the front. But again, the addition is pretty much the same with the new classroom wing here. Again, this is one of our larger addition schemes. This one kind of reversed of the other one where the one area we do keep of the existing building is the classroom wing. And everything else gets built to the side here. That area right there where the pointer's at, that would be a new gym with a weight room area, fitness, locker rooms. There'd be a new auditorium in this scheme, as well as a new black box theater, music areas, art, the futures, the alternative high school, that would be housed in the new addition, as well as a new administrative guidance area, a new cafeteria, and media center. The other addition that's shown on the other side here would be additional classrooms that would be added. One of the issues with the existing classroom right now, if anyone's not familiar with the school, is that there are a lot of classrooms in the core of that building, in the classroom wing, that are interior classrooms. A lot of these classrooms are undersized, there's not great ventilation, there's no windows. And so we would propose to take that programming out of that area, create more classrooms that would have natural light, be the appropriate size, and then we would reprogram those interior spaces to be more like collaboration spaces, technology spaces. Again, this one goes a little less of an addition, a smaller addition, although this may be one of our most ambitious schemes. And again, I just mentioned that core, the existing core in the classroom wing, where all these interior classrooms are located. We would propose taking out that core and creating a courtyard. Again, would be accessed from the existing cafeteria, and it would also provide interior light. And then we would replace those classrooms with a smaller classroom addition that would also house a new media center. And in addition to those classroom areas, we could add some more collaboration spaces, which is one thing that when we met with all the groups, all the different teachers, that's one thing that came up over and over again, that there's no place to kind of break out and meet and work together in anything other than a big classroom. So they were really requesting those smaller group spaces. In this scheme as well, we would add additional space to the gym, again, for a weight room, multi-purpose room. And then the existing areas to remain, again, would get an overhaul with new systems, new finishes, et cetera, reconfigured areas to get them more in tune with what they should be size-wise for the program. And again, this is one of the smaller additions, and we would propose here a new gym with, again, a multi-purpose weight room addition here, and then we would take off the existing gym at the end. And then we would do an extensive renovation of the existing areas.
I should point out also with the renovation addition options that Linda just went through, those are between 3 and 4 year construction schedules on those projects. A little bit longer than new construction options because the kids are simultaneously on that campus as well as the construction going on. So the kids have to move, and it's phased construction. So we're going sort of one area at a time as we're working through the existing buildings. So we have, and I'll go quick because I know we're running behind on time, but we've got three different new construction options on the high school site. And we looked at the overall site and quickly excluded a number of areas around the site because in the front of the building or on the east side of the existing building, which is that shadowed area there, they're just too small to be able to support the building size with the associated parking and drop-off areas around it. So we looked on the rear part of the site and on the east side of the site where the existing faculty parking lot and tennis courts currently are. So our first option, A, locates the building off into that area. And as you'll see on each of the subsequent plans, the amount of fields that we have is about the same. We're able to fit 2 baseball fields, 2 softball fields, a multi-purpose track and field complex, and 2 practice fields, as well as the 5 tennis courts that are currently located there. That's consistent in all 3 of the schemes that we're proposing. Let's go to the next slide, Jim. Oh, and we just show a small this is a little modeling program that we have just to show the three-dimensional relationship of the new building here in the foreground to the existing building just behind it. So they're fairly close to each other when the new one is constructed, but enough area for safe access and egress around the building so we can have a clear separation between the school's activities and operations and the contractor's construction area. The next option, B, pushes the building a little bit further back into the site. And it gets it a little bit further away from the existing building, approximately the same amount of fields deployment around the building. You can see in each of these schemes is clear separation between a car drop-off area and a bus drop-off area. We like to separate the buses from the cars so that the students are coming in from two different access points into sort of a shared or common lobby space within the building. Helps ease the traffic and the pedestrian congestion on the site. And let's go to the next slide. So you see this addition is roughly in the location where the current track is. So it's back in that area of the site. And this shows that close proximity of the two buildings three-dimensionally. Next slide. And the third option on the existing high school site, option C, this is putting the building right at the bus drop-off in the rear of the building. So right up against the existing building, maintaining that safe corridor between the two, but just looking at a test fit of that area to see how that works. Now each of these is I just use the term test fit, it's basically what they are. We're not saying that this is the right architecture for the building or this is how the different components of the building are arranged. But it's just to show, we know that the building is approximately 152,000 square feet based on the number of students that are going to be in the building. So we know how much the parking is going to be and what we want for fields. So we kind of test fit it on the site and we put the building in different locations to see which one works better for traffic, which one works better for the fields, the athletic fields. And this is the kind of stuff that we have these meetings at this juncture in our sequence so that we can get your feedback. We can get feedback from the school administrators, we can get feedback from the athletic director and the faculty, because we want to get feedback on these things because from an architectural or site standpoint, we can say what we think works, but we want to know what works for you and what doesn't work. So, we can just skip past this slide, same old. So, and then we show an option on the middle school site. So you can just barely see it here. See that white ghosting right there? That's the existing middle school. So we looked at a number of different locations on this site for a potential footprint for where the building could go. And we excluded both of the areas where the fields are consolidated because of the topography. They're a very steep slope. There's a big hill there. In the back part of the site behind the building, that slope falls off 50, 60 feet. You know, very difficult to establish a level platform in which to construct a large high school building. So we look primarily at the location on the fields, and again, we're just test fitting to see what works and how the components fit together on each site. And you know, we can fit this on this site, but as you can see, there's a lot more overlapping of the fields. We can accommodate the required amount of parking, but it would increase the traffic considerably on that roadway and in adjacent neighborhoods. So those are the kind of things we want to talk about. We want to hear about from the community what those impacts are to see which one of these options rises to the top and which ones of these becomes less advantageous. Okay. Back to you, Jim.
So all this work, and we have about a half hour left here, and we're anxious to hear from you. This is all focused on the students. Ultimately, those are the users that we're most concerned about. So as we think about workshops like what we're doing here today, it's really an act of trying to engage a wide variety of users from within the community. It's an opportunity to have a wide variety of different types of discussion. It's an opportunity ultimately to get to a point of collective decision making, and that's really what we're after as we think about options and alternatives relative to the high school. So, you know, in a thought about a field of interest, you have a couple choices. One choice is to spread out across your field and dig shallow. You get to learn a lot about a lot of different things, but you don't get much depth of information. The other choice, because you have the same amount of time, is to dig deep in one place. And you'll learn a real lot about one issue or one concern, but you don't get the breadth of exploration. With workshops like this, we hope that what we can do is kind of blend that and dig deep in several areas, and then take a little bit of extra time at the very end to tunnel horizontally and share information so that we get the best of both worlds. So this evening, what we'd like to introduce at this point is 3 breakout sessions. One breakout session, containers, will be held by Scott and Linda. It'll be up in this corner. What we'd like to focus on there is what's containing the activities of the high school. Let's think about buildings and environment in that way. And think about the variety of options and alternatives that have been shared, which through that lens of building might best fit or might best serve Middleborough. The second breakout session is that of contents. What goes in the facility? So Paul and Greg over in that back corner, they're going to be dealing with issues around educational plan and program. What are the types of things educationally that are trying to be accomplished within the building? So again, through the lens of all these different options and alternatives, what might best help support that vision of education for the future? The third breakout session will be held back in that corner near the exit, and that one will focus on contours, the idea of site, with the various options and alternatives. What type of site issues and concerns come to the table? It might be parking, circulation, playfields, how people move about the site. Those are the types of things. And that'll be led by David Warner and myself back in that corner. Don't see any children here this evening, so we will not have a children's breakout session. Again, the 3 breakout sessions up here, we're going to talk about the building, the container. Back in that corner, we're going to talk about educational plan and program, the contents. And then lastly, in that back corner, contours, the site, what's holding the overall program statement. So if we could take just a few minutes to get to them, I'd invite you to go somewhere where you think you have interest particularly, but if you feel like you want to move, please feel free to move about the room, go to a couple of their different breakout sessions. We'll bring us back together with about 5 minutes at the end so that we can do a quick recap. Thank you. One of the breakout sessions focused on building, so Scott, Linda, tell us, here we go.
Okay. Don't let Jim see this, okay? We had a very robust conversation, so robust we couldn't take notes. I told you to take the notes. I'll have to fill this in after, but we really did have, we kind of broke off into a couple of subgroups, and we did have a brief discussion. We talked a real lot about sustainability and energy efficiency of the new building and how we're going to achieve very high standards of energy efficiency. The building is being targeted to be a LEED silver building, which is a very high level of energy efficiency from its water efficiency, efficiencies in the thermal envelope of the building, the HVAC systems, etc. We also talked about, we spent a lot of time talking about the struggles in the renovation scenarios and how the renovation scenarios do take longer than new construction options. They do require phasing, which is disruptive to the educational process, and they do have certain limitations as efficiently and as effectively and creatively as you design it. You still have certain limitations with the existing structure and the existing systems within the building. So those were some of the concepts that some of our discussion revolved around. From your subgroup?
Well, we actually talked a lot about the addition renovations too, and the phasing, and how, that experience for the students really would not be ideal, and how that can can really impact the costs as well. So we talked a lot about that. We also talked about just the student size and how the size right now is based on the projections. And that projections right now for the town have been going down. So right now the student size is 720 again, and that's really set, the MSB really sets that guideline based on all the studies that are out there right now.
We'll start writing it down on the notepad.
Who's
that? Paul Moore
with the educational planning program.
Wow, look at that.
Thank you, Greg. We started off by talking about 21st century education and what effect that has on the use of the facilities and what they're trying to accomplish by doing this sort of thing. And also that got into the deficiencies of, parts of the existing building. Question was asked about the taking away the shops, the metal shop and wood shop, and would they be coming back? They wouldn't be coming back in the same form as they used to be, but more like what we call maker spaces. So they would have hands-on educational opportunities, and it would look like a shop, but it wouldn't be a shop per se. We also talked about project-based learning and what effect the one-to-one has. One-to-one means each student has a computer. And the computers they have are what we call Chromebooks. They have a certain amount of capacity, but you couldn't use them for instance, for CAD drafting. So there are certain kinds of programs in the school that would still need their own computer resources that are beyond what the Chromebooks can do. So there still would be some computer spaces, but probably not as much as you have now. Question about construction impact on learning, which you started talking about. There would be disruption in higher levels of disruption in the renovation addition spaces, options, than there are for the new school options, because the existing building would remain in operation during the construction process, and then they would move into the new school and then demolish the existing building. If you're renovating an existing space, the students that are in the school, they would still be in the school, but they would be moving around from one area to another. Every single space in that building gets renovated during these kinds of projects. And there may even be necessary to set up temporary modular classrooms for a period of time in order to give enough room for the contractors to do the work in the building. This is all taken together disruptive to the learning process. And so that's one of the things we wanted to know about. That's all the time I got?
All the time.
All right, you're up.
Okay, great.
Contours, I like that. It's a cool phrase that represents topography, landscape, what we do. So we heard some important input. I think one of the first comments was regarding the amount of development that we're showing. Basically, it's a tight fit to fit all these fields on there. We've shown that it's possible, but there was a comment made relative to the fact that significant investment was made not too long ago at Battis Field for the bleachers there, and that nothing against building all the fields here at the high school site in order to be able to accommodate the sports program. But if that focus was perhaps on practice for the everyday use that accommodates the issues associated with traffic and everything else, that perhaps consideration should be given for the investment that's been made at Battis Field in terms of bleachers. The other thing is relative to the amount of parking. Is there going to be enough parking on site for big events? So we'll have to study that and consider that as well. We have 370, 390 parking spaces, essentially recreating the existing parking that's on site now in any new configuration option or addition renovation. So let's see, there was questions about whether we knew what the fields were going to be, synthetic or natural. It's too soon to tell. We're going to be looking at the programming and the costs and considering those in light of that. Then, are there any other access points to the site right now? thinking about construction and time, separating cars, separating the school's use and the contractor access to the site. That would need to be done with separate entrances off of East Grove Street. At this point in time, there is no other access to the site, private property that extends along Wood Street. So there was a comment made associated with the addition renovations where emphasis was put on the new classrooms being the focus for any addition renovation, that is the high priority. And that another gentleman made a comment about he liked the addition going on the back of the building because the driveway coming into the site was a little bit longer before you had any branches to the driveway and having to make a decision which way to turn. And with regard to the new building options, a preference was stated for option B because with the building being further back on the site, it did allow for a better flow, better traffic flow on site. So that was the input that we received.
Well, thanks, David, and thank you all for coming out this evening. We're a little bit behind our finish schedule. I'll turn this over to Superintendent Lynch. Thank you.
And Chairman DeRosa, I'd just like, on behalf of the school department, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your ongoing input, your concern about the future. We're concerned about the future. We want to look at this facility and determine what's best to do with it. And whether it be an addition renovation, whether it be a new building, and that depends on what the townspeople think. So we want you to know as much as you can. And this is an open process. We are not predisposed at this point. No one on the committee is predisposed. There are 17 people on the committee. The meetings are open. You're welcome to come to all of them, any of them, and all of them. We'll continue with an additional open forum in February. That will be at the town hall. So we'll try to get the center of town going and get some more people interested. Obviously, we're a little disappointed in the turnout tonight, but we're certainly glad you turned out. And it's important that you people are here and spread the word about this process as we continue and move forward. We're doing what's best for the children in this community, and the children now and the children in the future. So we had a lot of students involved in the visioning session. Those students sitting in that room for 3 days knew that they were never going to experience some of the things they were talking about. But they knew that they wanted to pass this on to that next generation. So, and that's important. So, and that's what we want to do. So, Rob, you want to?
Very little to add. Just thank you for coming. Please feel free to participate. You can contact us through the website. You can attend our regular meetings, and we are interested in your involvement and your input. Thank you.
And that website is up, and it has any and all information that we've ever, right, Christy Murphy?
Correct.
Anything that's ever been processed, any bill that's been processed, any design that's ever been done is on that website, and it's mhsbuildingproject.com. So, thank you again, and good night.